Hi everyone, thank you very much for watching or listening today. Liam Hartree here with another episode of Presenting Champions today, joined by a very special guest who has a very inspirational story as well. Many of you know that's what I'm all about. So today's guest, Bossman Matt, and he is undefeated in backyard fights. We're going to be talking about his fighting journey so far with Streetbeasts. Some of you will have seen a couple of my other Streetbeasts interviews. Very exciting promotion. But his life is much deeper than just that of a fighter. We're going to be talking about some of the trials and tribulations this man has overcome, his faith, his fighting journey, as I mentioned, from beginning to now, to the future, and a lot of other good stuff. So stay tuned, everyone. But before we get into all of that, I just want to say, champ, obviously big thank you for coming on the show and taking time out of your day to be here, basically. I really appreciate that.
Yes, sir. My pleasure. I appreciate you for having me on your platform. Thank you, brother.
No worries at all. And like I said to you before we started recording, I definitely think that your story will make a difference to a lot of people when we get this out there today. So getting into it a little bit, obviously we'll talk about Streetbeasts, we'll talk about fighting, but before we get into that, I think it's time to go back in time, basically, to your earlier life. So when it comes into your journey, I think we'll start a little bit with the martial arts side of things, but I know there's also some travesties that you've overcome and you've made a positive out of. Kicking it off with the fighting, you mentioned having a background in karate, kickboxing, things of that nature. Is that where you first became interested in combat sports, martial arts? Was that where it all began for you?
So when I was younger, I come from a city. It's not many people make it out of there, and so I grew up, getting into fights and stuff like that. And my dad used to tell me when I was younger, why fight for free when you can get paid for it? So my dad, he put me in a karate dojo when I was about 12, 13, and I fell in love with it. From the day I went to the dojo, I fell in love with it, and ever since then, I've just been pursuing it.
Yeah, so that was the start of the journey. Well, it's good advice. And right there from the beginning, it shows how to turn a negative into a positive straight off the bat. So I love that. So obviously, you mentioned when we were talking about this, when we were setting this up, that obviously there was a tragedy that happened in your family with losing your daughter and everything like that. It's terrible. I mean, I can't imagine what that must be like, to be honest. I don't think words can do that justice. But at the same time, you've obviously turn that into a positive as much as someone can. I mean that with utmost respect, by using that as developing the fire to fight. So with this, talk to us a little bit about that time in your life. Obviously, I don't want to dwell on any negatives or any painful things, but just anything that you feel comfortable sharing,
Absolutely.
about that basically.
So when it happened, I was engaged. Me and her recently separated. I was 15 years old, and we got a call, and they told us, that she was going into early labor. She was pregnant, and my daughter was what is called stillborn. She was just born. I believe they said 2 weeks early. If she would have been in the womb for 2 more weeks, she may would have been okay. But going past that, I mean, after I was lost, brother, I didn't know what to do. I was young, and my whole family, they tried, but there wasn't really much they could do, so that's kind of how my journey from MMA became distant. I stopped training and I started doing stuff. I started going out in the streets, just trying to do anything to get away from what I was feeling. And so I had to finally, once it became overwhelming, I got incarcerated after she passed away. And I had enough time to think. I sat down and I went through therapy. I went through counseling, and I just had to learn to accept that she was gone, and there was nothing I could do to change that. So the only thing I could do to change that was just to make something out of her name. So I took over when she passed. When I got incarcerated, so me and my brother, he's also a martial artist. He told me, he was like, we're either gonna die or we're gonna go to jail, and this same thing keeps happening. All of our friends are passing away. We got to change. And so we sat down, and my dad told us, he was like, he talked to us and he said, it's okay to grieve. It's okay to be hurt. But what are you going to do with the pain? And what are you going to make of yourself? And so I found myself, brother. I started talking to God, and I just gave myself to God. And as soon as I did that, everything just became natural. instead of just being overwhelmed with hurt and pain, I became overwhelmed with drive and hunger and wanting to be something better for her. So I dove back into to the martial arts world. I stopped school young when she passed away. I stopped going to school my 10th grade year, and I pursued MMA full time. And ever since then, brother, I've just been trying to make a positive out of a negative. So even though I've been down the road of incarceration, I've done the things I was out in the streets doing the things I had no business doing. I want kids to know that when you do go through trials and tribulations, there is beauty on the other side of it. You just have to find that within yourself, that it's not over. It's not a life lesson, or it's not a life sentence. It's just a life lesson. And so when you go through pain, there's beauty on the other side of it.
I love that. That is a very, very powerful message, and something that really needs to be told. And yeah, I mean, so many people are going through that. They don't know the way out from it, and everything of that nature. So it is amazing. Before we get more into the combat sports side of things and all of that good stuff, talking about the transition that you went through just a little bit more, going a little bit deeper into that side of things. Before you found God or He found you, you know, it depends on your point of view with that. Were you like a believer before that time, or was it something
I was. And when she passed away, when my daughter passed away, and I want to say her name too, rest in peace to my beautiful daughter, Madeline Rose Reynolds. And I do this for you, baby. But before she passed away, I was a big believer in Christ. I was raised in Christ. But when she did pass away, I lost my faith. I lost everything. I felt angry with God, you know. I felt like every other person that loses someone, if God was here, how could He allow this to happen? You know, why me? And I just had the victim mindset, and I had to get out of that. And, you know, there's people, millions of people around the world that have been through exactly what I've gone through. And you know, like I say, it's trials and tribulations. And it took me a while, brother. I didn't come back to Christ until that happened when I think I was 15 when that happened. And I didn't come back to Christ until I was maybe 18, 17, 18. I got lost. I really did for some years.
Yeah. And just to touch on it with that time as well, and bear in mind now, everything I bring up here is it's always for the purpose of, you know, inspiring people, helping people, contributing.
Absolutely.
Nothing is brought up to be negative. But just to touch on that time when, you know, when you were locked up and these things were going on, as I mentioned, not to dwell on anything negative, but you mentioned, you know, there was therapy and there was some counseling there as well. I just wanted to highlight that. Was that in the the juvenile center or whatever, or was that sort of on the outside, or how did that side of it come about? I think that deserves a mention as well.
For me, so I had a nice probation officer. So I got incarcerated. She let me go. And I only did maybe 2 days after my first arrest, my initial arrest, I only served 2 days and I was released. I got out, I got into a fight, and I got sent back. And so she told me but she was very understanding. And if you're watching this, Miss Octavia, I love you and I appreciate you. She gave me an opportunity and she told me, I'll allow you to go home and be with your family, but I want you to go through anger management and I want you to go through therapy and I want you to talk about what's going on. And for the longest, I never understood how maybe just talking about something could change the way you feel, but it genuinely did. I was that kid I balled everything up and I didn't want anyone to know that I was hurting. I wanted to I'm okay and forget about it, you know? And finally I sat down and I went through that therapy. And basically what that looked like, it was a bunch of kids that were in similar situations to mine. They were also recently incarcerated. And we all sat down and we went there twice a week. And I had to go for 6 months, but I'm glad that I did. I think if I would have never went there and actually like faced my problems, because I was trying to put them off. And you can't run from your problems. You know, trying not to think about it, that's not going to get you but so far. So anybody out there that's going through anything, mental health, any loss, any grief, I would suggest at least give it a try. Go talk to somebody, because people do care about you and people want to hear what's wrong and what you're going through, because there is help out there if you allow yourself to be helped.
Yeah, that's another very, very powerful sort of lesson, you know, that I really think people can apply to their lives, and that's the reason for giving that a mention. I think that in our culture, you know, as men in particular, we do bottle things up and we do sort of. I've been through that exact same process, you know, different reasons as to why it started, but not expressing myself, traumatic experiences that I've sort of blocked out. That then come back, you know, all this sort of stuff. And I don't like the the mental health label in this context, but through the self-expression is a very, very healing thing. And I get where you're coming from with that, not to go off on a tangent, but it's a very, very powerful lesson. And for people out there, listen to that, because that can make all the difference between living a happy, fulfilled life and a miserable, unhappy life that only hurts yourself and other people in the end of the day.
It makes a great difference. And if you make that change for yourself, the people around you love you and they care about you. So if you're not comfortable with therapy, maybe for whatever your reason is, find someone in your family that also knows what you've been through. They're feeling similar pain if it's loss, and you have to find it within yourself. And it all starts here. And I'll say this, my sensei tells me all the time, fighting is 90% mental and only 10% physical. But that goes for fighting mental battles. It goes for fighting anything in your life that you feel you cannot overcome. You just have to conquer that. You have to find it within yourself. Dig deep. Remember who you were before your trauma. Remember who your kids looked up to and your brothers and sisters loved before your pain. And just dig deep. Yourself is still in there. You're still beautiful. You're still a great human being. You just went through something, and it's okay to go talk about that. And I'm a big advocate for people talking about how they feel, because for the longest, I wouldn't say a word. And until then, I felt miserable. I was angry at the world. I felt like the world owed me something. But the only thing that I owed myself was peace. And you will find peace if you want it. You just have to search for it. It's out there, I promise.
Absolutely powerful, powerful word on so many levels. And it also sort of, and we'll move past this now, but just to really underline that as well, I love that you've mentioned not only what happens to somebody, but how that can then lead into obviously, lashing out and all sorts of supposedly bad behavior that's actually coming from, and it is bad, I'm not condoning it, but it comes from this place of inner pain, the people who are hurting.
I'll tell you this, brother, not to cut you off. Anything that I ever did, I wasn't a bad kid. I was a lost kid. I was just lost. And, sometimes trouble and pain in your life, it makes you become someone that even you can't stand to deal with. You don't love that. You don't love yourself anymore. And you become to a point in your life where you don't care what happens. And to all my kids, I want to say this, to all my kids from Huntsville. I'm from Huntsville, Alabama. All of y'all that feel lost, all of y'all that feel you don't have purpose, I know what it's like to grow up in those neighborhoods. I know exactly what you feel, but you have to become focused, and you have to make sure that you care about you. If other people don't care about you, you care about yourself. I'm not saying be selfish all the time, but sometimes you have to be selfish and love yourself enough to say, hey, these are my friends. Even though your friends may do all the things that I used to do and many others did, you don't have to do that. You can still love your friends from a distance. It's okay. Nowadays, it's not cool to be the school graduate, but I'm telling you guys, I went to school with guys and I used to think I was some cool kid. There's kids that I went to school with, we made fun of, that are making millions of dollars now. And that's because they stayed focused. It's not because they had more than me or they came from a better area than me. Don't use any of that as an excuse. You just have to grind just a little bit harder, and you can get exactly where the person you look up to is.
I love that. I absolutely love. I mean, there's so many things in there, and we'd be here all day if we went into it. But there are so many things you mentioned. There's who you associate with being a powerful thing. There's your experience is not defining you. It's something that happened to you. It's not something that you actually are. There's so many things that we could go off in, and then I won't go into all of them. But absolutely fantastic wisdom is all I'll say about that. So absolutely wonderful. Moving forward a little bit into obviously the combat sports, the fighting side of things, MMA and everything of that nature. At what time did it start to develop into something that you knew you could go far with this? I mean, you mentioned just now about really throwing yourself into training, really dedicating yourself to that. At what point did you start to realize, I can go far with this, I can do something big with my life in this area? I just want to go back to that time in your life, basically.
Okay, so when I first got into martial arts, I wanted more of the discipline and the structure that came from it. I wasn't really looking to compete at first. I was just there, just trying to find, discipline. A lot of people join martial arts just to find structure. And so I felt like I just needed some guidance. And my sensei, he reached out to me, and big shout out to him. That guy saved my life. But I would say when I realized that I had potential was we would have black belts in the dojo, and I was still a white belt or a yellow belt, just starting out, and I was able to hang with those guys just based off of raw talent. And every time we would have people come into the dojo and, you know, people watching, they would always tell me, you know, you have potential. You really do. We can see you doing this. And brother, I was always the first one there and the last one out. I was the kid that was waiting at the dojo for Sensei to open the door. And I was the kid that Sensei had to tell to go home because I never wanted to leave. And I think that passion, I really think that passion just comes from, once you notice that you have it, you just want to keep on chasing it. And like my brother Manu the Great says, 1% better every single day. So that's what I strive for, just 1% better every day.
Yeah, absolutely, 1% better. That's a powerful lesson for not only for martial arts but for life as well. Yeah, shout out to Manu as well. Great guy, obviously been on this show, so got a lot of respect for him. So yeah, big shout out to him. So when it comes to this, obviously to Streetbeasts itself, and you know getting involved with them, you're obviously 6-0 undefeated, as I mentioned briefly at the beginning. At what time did you first become involved with them? You know, and I just want to go back to the beginning of your relationship with Streetbeasts, basically. You know, how you found them, what inspired you to compete with them, and when you sort of made the transition from training and the dedication and the healing, you know, that martial arts can bring, to going from that to deciding, actually, I do want to fight, I do want to test myself, and things of that nature. So when did that first start? When did you decide, I want to compete, I want to get in there and do this?
So me being from Huntsville, Alabama, so my brother, he trains at Rocket City. And my brother, me and him, you know, you have the big brother competition all the time. So my brother, he went and competed and he did awesome. And I was like, okay, I keep up with my brother sparring and he's dominating the sport. So I know I have to go do something. I couldn't, you know, I just wanted to chase big brother and see what I could do. So my first fight, it's called Fight Flicks. They're just like Street Beef. Shout out to Fight Flicks. They're just like them, but they're a more local area for me. And so with Fight Flicks, they have a relationship with Street Beefs, and they contacted Street Beefs. And Street Beefs, my debut, me and Manu are going to have a match. And me and Manu, a big respect to him. But I'm 6-0 fighting out of Fight Flicks. He's 8-0 fighting out of Street Beefs. So we're gonna do a mashup, and we're gonna see what happens. But so I would say, honestly, brother, what got me into wanting to actually compete is just my sensei always tells me and every other guy he trains, you know, you can be as good as you want to be, but you're not pressure tested. You don't know what happens, and you know what pressure creates, right, brother? Pressure creates diamonds. So I just went out there and I put it on the line. And from the very first fight, I won my first fight in the second round by TKO. And I fell in love with the feeling, the adrenaline that came with it, the love that came with it. And I built a following based off of my first fight. It got posted. It went viral. And I just fell in love with being able to have a voice and talk to people and also chase my dream and pursue MMA. So it just fell into my hands, brother, and I just ran with it.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, that is incredible. It's obviously meant to be, I think, when these opportunities present themselves in unexpected ways as well. So in terms of, you mentioned earlier about obviously the physical aspect of training, your dedication, you know, being the first to show up, the last to leave. And obviously combat sports fighting, it is a very, very physical thing, but you touched on something earlier that I love to talk about, which is the mental side of competition, because I feel it's overlooked a lot of times. You know, people don't talk about it enough. That some people do, but you know, there's a lot of focus on the physical training, which is still essential. But when it comes to mentally preparing for a competition, how do you do that? What is the process you're going through on the build up to a fight? I'm not sure if Fight Flicks, if it's like Street Beefs, where you know you don't know who you're fighting until close to it.
Like that. You just show up, and whoever gets in there, that's your guy.
Right. Okay. So in terms of the mental side, I mean, let's talk about it. In the challenge, if you get nervous, you know, anything. I mean, one of the things that Manu said was he actually said, you know, before fights, I get nervous, I'm shaking before I get in there, and I was amazed because a lot of people would be, well, a lot of people are sort of fronting about that and saying, oh no, that never happens to me, whatever.
Yeah.
But, you know, actually, he was straight up saying, actually, it does happen. So just the whole process that fans don't see of what's going through your mind on the immediate build-up. Let's get into that side of it.
So when you get the call and you decide that you're going to compete on whatever card it may be, like me, I have August 23rd coming up, right? So right now, what that looks like is the fight process. First thing you're going to do is process. okay, now it's time to get into grind mode. I have to diet and I have to start treating my body and get it ready for fight week, right? So, but I don't care what anyone tells you, brother. If they tell you they're getting in the cage and they're not nervous, they're either insane or they're lying to you. Because before I get in the fight, I can like when I walk out, I can genuinely feel every piece of my body shaking. Like, and it doesn't stop until you get in there and the cage is closed. And then it just becomes you're zoned in. You just see only you and the guy standing in front of you. And the way I like to look at it is he's in my way to where I'm trying to go, which is to the top. I want to be a champion. So in order to become a champion, I have to get him out of this octagon. So, but to touch on the mental side, I mean, the way that I prepare for it is, I'll go to the gym and I'll spar, and we'll have our whole team come around, and everyone's there, and you're competing in front of people. And so Thursday is our open sparring day. People from all over the country come in and they spar. And so I think just staying active and just keeping your body physically active, it kind of weighs out the mental side of it. But the hardest day mentally is fight day. Waking up that more, or actually going to sleep that night, because I can't skip that. That's the hard part. Going to sleep that night knowing when you wake up in the morning, you're going to go to war with another warrior. I mean, it's a terrifying feeling, but it's beautiful. It's not a terrifying feeling as in you don't want to do it. It's terrifying like you can't wait to do it. It's like when you jump off of a cliff into some water, you know, you don't know what's going to happen when you hit the water, but you're excited to find out, you know? So it just, I don't know, brother. The thing is you have to prepare mentally just as much as you have to physically. So we always say strong mind, strong body. So I try to stay just as sharp here as I do with these.
Yeah. I love that, and I love, the concept of turning nerves or anxiety, even if it's the positive form, into something positive. And with the amount of fighters I've interviewed of all different sports, boxing, MMA, kickboxing, every type of thing you could do, very few of them admit to that. Some of the top champions do. I mean, I remember I had Kelly Pavlik on his show. Obviously, the titles he won: WBC, WBO, Ring Magazine, a lineal championship, all at middleweight. And I said to him, do people get nervous? And he was just like, absolutely. Everyone gets nervous before a fight. There's so much on the line. So some of the top people do admit to it, but at the same time, a lot of people just like, oh no. So I think, yeah, obviously it's macho stuff. It's BS basically. But the fact that you talk about that openly, I love that, because it shows people that want to compete, whether it's in combat sports or whether it's in something else that they want to do in life, that they want to achieve. It goes to show that it's not always an easy process, but if you push through that, you can get there. And that's sort of my reason for bringing that up. Let's talk a little bit about the fights themselves, because at the end of the day, that's a big part of what people will want to hear as well. And with this, I don't have a narrow question, because you're 6-0 undefeated. You've been in there, and so you'll have the stories. But in terms of your best performances, some of your favorite fights that you've had so far, it's quite a big question, but anything that you'd like to share about the actual fights, the actual competitions themselves, would be fantastic to get into that side of it.
Absolutely, brother. I feel my first fight may have been my greatest performance, and I say that because I was so hungry, and I just had a chip on my shoulder, and I think every single performance that I've had, I've done right and I've done wrong. But my first fight, the first round, it was a dog fight. We were in there, and I didn't have much ground game. I'm a karate-based fighter, didn't have much ground game, and he was a wrestler. So he took me down, and I was struggling, brother. My cardio was failing. He was laying on me, Khabib Nurmagomedov style, just dogging me. And so finally, when we opened up the second round, my sensei told me when we got down and we sat down, he said, you're going to have to use your reach. I'm 6'2", he's 5'10". You're going to have to use your reach and keep him away from you. And when he changes levels, I want you to throw your kicks, use your jab, and circle out. So he came in for a takedown. I caught him with a nice roundhouse. He didn't get there fast enough, so I caught him with the nice roundhouse. He goes down, and I go into guard with no idea of what I'm doing. No idea. I go down, get in guard with him, and I start dropping elbows, and they stopped the fight, brother. And to me, that was my most beautiful fight moment, because it just I felt like I was defeated already, and my sensei, just being the great instructor that he is, he saw it for what it was. And shout out the wrestlers; those guys, they train hard and strong. But that was before I advanced and learned the ground game. But my most recent fight, to get into that one. So a lot of people had a little bit of controversy about that one. They think it could have went either way. And, you know, that's the thing. If you don't want it to go to the judges, don't let it get there. And so we went the full 3 rounds. And the first round scored 10-8 for Bossman. I mean, you guys saw it. We went to war in there. But I'll give him this. He caught me. He sat me on my seat in the second round. He won the second round, 10-8. So the third round, this was my hardest. This was my hardest battle. He opens up and he shoots a takedown. And when I'm in guard, I pull guard and I have him in a triangle. I burned out. And so for the rest, there were 3-minute rounds. And that was around the 2 minute. So I had 2 minutes with a guy on top of me and I had nothing left in the tank. So finally, I was able to dig deep. And my brother, he's a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I do get a lot of grappling training now. And we've advanced the ground game now. But so finally, I was able to, you know, ride it out for those 2 minutes. And when we went to decision, I want to say, brother, like, shout out to all those guys that are able to go 5 rounds, 3 rounds in a dogfight. That was my first time going to decision. All of my other opponents, I finished them. That guy right there, big shout out to Michael. Well, I appreciate you taking that fight, brother. I'm sorry it didn't go the way it went. After my fight, August 23rd, I would be open. If you wanted to do it again, brother, I would be honored to do it.
Absolutely, yeah. Amazing achievements there, and obviously it's good to get into the actual gritty aspect of the fights themselves, because at the end of the day, people love that. Now, when I do these interviews, I try and sort of cater for people who know about the individual that I'm talking to and those who don't. So there's sort of questions for both sides of it. You've got a big following, we'll get to that in a moment. For people who are not as familiar with the fight structure, with fight flicks and everything like that, I'd like to get into what it's like in terms of the crowd and the atmosphere, because some people will know all about this because they will have watched your fight, but for those people that it's sort of their first exposure, if you get where I'm coming from, either to you or to them as an organization, is it very similar to Streetbeasts in, I mean, I sort of know the answer to this, by the way. But,
it's very similar to Streetbeasts. The only difference I would say between us and Streetbeasts is, and shout out to Streetbeasts, I love what they do. I'm excited to compete in August. I'm very excited. But the only difference I would say is there's more people at Streetbeasts in the crowd than there is at Fight Flicks. And that's because Streetbeasts is a well-known organization. Fight Flicks is just not coming off the ground. So, but I would say it is very similar. So it's the same thing, backyard warriors. There's a cage in the backyard. There's people around the cage. But Streetbeasts has bred a lot of champions. You got Manu the Great, a lot of great guys in there. You know, you could talk all day about what they've accomplished. But Fight Flicks, brother, I want to say to them, I appreciate them allowing me out there. And we're going to keep doing our thing. We're going to keep coming up just as well. But the scenery, I'll lay it out for you. So you go down a long gravel road to get there. I swear that's the longest part of the ride is the road that it's on. Long dirt road, bunch of trees. You get out and you just see a bunch of rednecks. It's in Tennessee. So it's a bunch of country people. They're out there and they love to fight. So they're loud, they're obnoxious. And you have a walkout too. You're allowed to walk out. And the most intimidating, going back to the mental aspect part of it, is the most intimidating part is having that guy's family. You're walking right past his wife, his kids, his grandmother might be there. You know, that's the beauty of Fight Flicks. They allow anyone who wants to compete. If you're 18 and above, you can go out there and put it on the line and become a champion if you have what it takes. But if anyone was to ask if it's similar to Streetbeasts, I would say not. If I rated it on a 10 scale of 10 being close to them, it would be 9. There may be slight differences, but it's practically the same exact thing.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I mean, obviously, it's one of those things where I've seen some of the shows and different things, but at the same time, for people who don't know, I mean, I don't know loads about it, but I know some. But for people where it's their first exposure altogether, then it's really good just to give them a mention. And one of the things I will say as well is it would be amazing to have something like that over here in the UK as well, because we do have a few organizations like that, but it's all bare knuckle stuff. You know, everything is like that type of thing. But you know,
I love watching bare knuckle. Those guys are warriors.
So there's a few like that, man. I mean, there's a few organizations in Europe and over here in the UK where they do that type of thing, and it's the same sort of thing. It's outside of any governing body or whatever. But in terms of having something solid with like MMA or boxing, Saying that, there are boxing organizations. There's one called King of the Ring, where you can basically they pop up at different locations and anyone can join and fight. There's not really a lot, at least not that I'm aware of, for MMA. So it would be awesome if something like that popped up over here, man. So maybe one day.
Shout out to all my fans that are in the UK. We love you guys. We appreciate the support. Shout out to the UK.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking about your fans, though, that is something else I do want to get into a little bit here. You have a big following on TikTok. You have a lot of support from different people. With that in mind, talk to us a little bit about sort of how your following grew and how that's developed to where it is now, and just a little bit about what your fans mean to you, and anything you'd like to say about that, because you've got a big following. It's well deserved, which I don't say that lightly, with everything that you've overcome and the fact you're putting a positive message out there. I love that, because there's a lot of people, Instagram stars, TikTok stars, they're putting messages out there that are not always the best. So to see you putting a positive message out there, love that. But just talk to us a little bit about how that developed and what they mean to you, and anything you'd like to say about it really would be awesome.
So for me, my fans, they came after my first fight. I had my first fight. It got posted on TikTok by my older brother, and it went viral. So my brother talked me into getting a TikTok. I was that guy who didn't really care for it, and I made a TikTok. And the support that they gave me, I mean, I got negative too, but positive, negative energy does not have enough to kill love. And so the love that I received, and it was beautiful, because there was kids around the world. They were having bets inside of middle schools, like $5 bets on Bossman Matt versus another TikToker. And it just made me feel like, I have an opportunity here to really change. And so my fans, to me, brother, they mean everything to me. And I know a lot of guys say that, but they really do. Without my fans, I wouldn't be able to talk to you now. I wouldn't have the opportunities that I have. Yes, I'm a skilled fighter and I train hard, but without those, I would be nothing. And so my fans, I treat them like my family. I go live once a day. I talk to them, and during my camp, I talk to them. And I'm open with my fans. And the reason I'm like that, when I'm struggling, I deal with anxiety and depression just like every other person. And so I'm open with them. I allow them to see me at my best and at my worst. And the reason I do that is because I want them to know, yes, I have a platform. Yes, I am successful now, but that doesn't change who you are, the things that you go through. You're still going to suffer in life, but it's about just keep on going. And a lot of things, in my opinion, on social media is a little different than others. I feel like a lot of people on social media only show the good side of things, and it gives people a false image of what would be, what happy looks like. And happy is not millions of dollars. And yes, sure, money would make some people happy. But for me, happiness is being able to be my genuine self around people who care about me and they support me and they accept me, brother. I could go live and tell them that I'm struggling mentally, and they'll come in there and they'll talk to me. And brother, they'll anytime I drop merchandise, they grab it. Anytime I post a video, they comment. And I get messages all the time. I want to shout out Twisted Joker. He's a guy from my TikTok. He's an older gentleman. He came into my live, had no idea about anything to do with my fight career, nothing. His mother passed away. This is just a testimony to the difference you can make on social media. His mother passed away. He was going through depression. He was just disabled. He's not able to work anymore. And so him being able to watch my live, he messaged me and told me that I saved his life. And I think that day that I got that message, I fell in love with the idea of being able to help somebody. Because, me and as men, it's not easy to tell another man that you're suffering, And so when he felt vulnerable enough to message me and tell me that, it just showed me that my voice can make a difference, not only for men, but for women and for people around the world that support me. I just want to say, I appreciate you guys. I love every single one of you. Shout out to every single one of you guys. And I'm going to keep on being great for y'all. Every fight is for y'all. Every time I go hit that gym, every punch, every kick I throw, I'm doing this because I love you guys and I love the support that you guys give me. So thank you.
Incredible shout out. And it is wonderful, because at the end of the day, the sport or anything like that would be nothing without fans. But it's much deeper than that as well. With everything you said, the difference that we can make. Media is a powerful tool if it's used correctly. So getting into the last thing really, because for people's attention spans and everything, wrapping it up shortly because we've got into some really, really good stuff. Obviously your future plans, and we know about Manu and that fight that's going to be happening soon. You mentioned a rematch with the gentleman that you fought early on, and that's a possibility. But in terms of your future plans, where you want to go from here, I'm going to close out with this because obviously you're on the up and up. It's very, very exciting time to talk to you about your journey because you are really on the up and up. So where would you like to go? Where do you see your career in sort of however long, 2 years, 5 years? I asked Manu the same thing. He sort of gave a breakdown of he wants to amateur MMA, pro MMA, whatever. But it's different for different people. So for you, what are you aiming for in a fight game, and what are your plans over the next few years, basically?
So my plans for the next few years are, first of all, I want to continue my journey. Obviously, I want to continue my journey as a martial artist, but I not only want to grow as a fighter, I want to grow as a person. So in 5 years, I want to be a champion. I want to be a professional champion. So my plan right now is I'm going to finish out 2022. I'm going to go get some amateur sanctioned fights in, see how they go. And in my state, you need 3 wins to win. If we get enough wins to qualify as a professional, 2023, I'm going to become a professional MMA fighter. And my goal is just to be great, brother. I want to become a champion, and I want to be up there with the greats like Patty and Conor McGregor. I want to be one of those guys, brother, and I'm going to do everything that it takes. And I believe in a vision board, so I write down my goals every day, something that I want to do. And I'm telling you guys that are listening, if you want to go, write it down and check them off as you accomplish them. But don't get satisfied. When you check that list off, make another list. So my goal is I want to become a champion, and I just want to continue to help people, brother. And also, I want to start some type of foundation for mental health advocacy, and that's why I say it's deeper than the fight game. I have a lot of big plans, and I just want to get out there, brother. I want my name to be great, and I don't want people to know me as just the guy who could fight. I don't want that to be my whole image. I want people to know that outside of the fight game, I care about you, I love you, and in 5 years, guys, we're going to be champions. Shout out to the Boss family. That's my supporters. We're going to be a champion. And we're going to be a champion in August, too. We're going to go get a backyard title. And after that, we're not going to do – and I have to announce this. I hate to end it like this because it's kind of a cliffhanger. But after my fight in August, I will no longer be fighting for any backyard organizations. I will still support them, and I'll still have love for them. But I'm going to go completely amateur sanctioned fights. That way I can get on my journey to becoming a professional athlete.
Yeah, amazing, absolutely amazing, and it is a cliffhanger, but it's all good, man, because it keeps people interested in the next steps. I believe the future is bright for yourself, and I'm not just saying that. I mean, I can really feel that. And I did say, funny enough, as soon as you're going to be fighting him, I did say to Manu this as well. I don't say it to everybody, but some people just have that combination, where they have the skills, they have the heart, they have the discipline, they have all these different things. I love what you're doing, and I really think you have the potential to go a long way, obviously in the fight game, but then to use that as a platform for these are the things you want to do, the broader reach. Got a lot of respect for that, man. So I think the future is very bright. I've got no doubt that you'll reach those dizzy heights, as they say, whatever you want to call it, in the fight game. And when you're amateur, when you're professional, a little way down the line, we can do another one of these. And we can
I would love to, brother. I would love to. And I want to say thank you, brother. I appreciate you. You took a chance on me. You gave me a spotlight on your platform. And I love what you do here, brother. To all the fighters that come after me on this platform, we as fighters, we need more opportunities. We need more guys like you that are genuine. And a lot of guys only care about the fight scene. You care about us as people. And I just want to say I appreciate you so much, brother. And thank you for your time. I mean that.
Oh, well, you're very welcome. Thank you for your kind words, because that means a lot. And that is what I try and do. I try and show fighters as people, and I try and take the life lessons that they've learned and sort of distill those for people to apply to whatever they're doing and help people. So listen, it's been a pleasure. It goes two ways. I mean, you're helping me as well because you're contributing to what I want to do. We're helping each other with the audience because I'm sure fans from both sides will watch this and listen to this. So it's very much a mutual thing in that way. But yeah, the last thing for me to do, once again, big thank you for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. God bless. And let's help lots of people. Let's make a difference.
Let's do it, brother.
Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the Simply Inspired YouTube channel, and there'll be more videos coming soon.